Our panel is missing Dr. Christian Müller here in Berlin from DFKI, but if there should be any question on the project, Mathis has agreed to take the question should it be during the discussion, right? Because you work together on the Genesis project. And in Montreal, we have Ashkan Amiri from BlackBerry and Frank Bonney from PMG Technologies, and here in Berlin, Denise van de Weyer. Did I pronounce it right? Denise from BMW. Please take your seat. Okay. So we will make now a jump between Montreal, Berlin, back to Montreal, and I would like to start with Ashkan from BlackBerry. I remember at my first German-Canadian concourse, it was about startups. We also had a representative of BlackBerry here in Germany talking about the startup business supported by BlackBerry, and I'm very interested what you do now with machine learning and AI at BlackBerry, and also in former times BlackBerry was the first cell phone, smartphone for every sort of security concerned manager, and you just did a big deal. I just read about $1.3 billion buying a cybersecurity firm for BlackBerry. So perhaps you can draw us a picture of your work and strategy of BlackBerry being involved in that market.
Absolutely. So can you hear me well in Berlin?
Sorry, yeah, we hear you. Sorry.
Okay,
I was
great,
distracted.
thank you.
Apologies.
So, no worries. Let me take a step back about the transition that BlackBerry has made from hardware to software. So the name of BlackBerry has been associated with cybersecurity for quite a few years. From the secure mobile phones that we had to the work that we are doing with different business partners, industries, and governments in terms of securing their infrastructure and data and applications and many other things. So this association with cybersecurity in general builds on our leadership in the space of enterprise mobility management and unified endpoint management, but that's not it. Because in the portfolio of products and services that we provide, we also secure applications, endpoints, documents, alerts, and crisis communications, and many other things. So with that in mind, we see that anything in the space of connected devices and Internet of Things, and the next generation would be Enterprise of Things, would be within our comfort zone. And we can apply the expertise that we have to those problems. So on top of that, we see that cars, the direction that automotive industry has taken, makes cars to become something different from the way they were in a few years ago. So they are actually right now servers on wheels, and servers that run fast while you're riding in them. So it's very important to notice that we can consider cars to be mission critical systems. And these mission critical systems, when we talk about them, we have to think about other systems that use platforms and foundational software that makes sure these kind of devices, these kind of equipments are running 24/7 in a fail-safe fashion. Speaking of that, BlackBerry QNX is one of the platforms that is security certified and operates in a fashion that supports many of the requirements that our business partners have across the world. And the partners that we have in the automotive sector cover, I think it's about plus 45 different OEMs, original equipment manufacturers that we are working with, including Audi, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Jaguar, and many other well-known names. And we are also working with other companies that provide open source platforms for automotive industry, and also parts and sensors and actuators. So these things all said, we have to consider the fact that security and safety becomes a inseparable part of these equipments. And that's a space that we are investing a lot in. And you might have heard news that we are investing about $350 million in this space for safety and security of automotive software. And about $40 million of that comes from Canadian government, which is a huge contribution from the government side. And we are going to invest in the space for the next few years, and we make sure to continue our leadership in the space of secure and safe software. Now, back to the question that you asked about the role that AI plays in this space. So, traditionally, we are using conventional controls to deal with cyber threats. And when I say conventional controls, I mean controls that build on the knowledge that we have about known threats. And known threats are the ones that we have seen before and we have detected before. And we have found a way to remedy them through rules-based systems. So the new breed that is required to handle threats that we haven't seen before, to handle threats that are more complex than the ones that we can detect through conventional controls, is required here. And it requires use of models that build on the stochastic analysis of data rather than the deterministic analysis of data that we had before through conventional controls. This is not to say that the new breed is going to be a substitute for the old ones. No, they have different coverages. And this one does a different thing. The conventional one provides a different set of coverage, and we have to keep it in place. So the investment that we have made in this space is to make sure that we are ready for AI-powered cybersecurity. And we are building the groundwork in order to make sure that we develop new tools and technologies that can step away from those conventional controls. And this new breed of defense mechanisms can help us deal with the scale of cyber threats as they are increasing, deal with the workforce limitations that we have. Because it's not really easy to go to market and hire 10 different threat analysts and cyber analysts. Rather, we have to find ways to increase scalability and increase efficiency of our operating models through automation and through learning from our data, which is becoming more verbose as we speak by the new technologies that are being introduced in our infrastructures across the world. Not only BlackBerry, all the players in this field, which collect more sensory information from the infrastructure, which in a way gives us more line of sight into activities. And by that line of sight, we can definitely identify patterns using data science-driven approaches in a way that we couldn't do before using conventional techniques.
Thank you.
So in relation to silence, I wanted to make also a comment. This is, as you said, is a very big acquisition and shows how serious we are about integration of AI in our product portfolio.
Thank you, Ashan. And coming back here to Berlin and coming from a software, former mobile producer to the hardware of mobility, a car producer, Denise is here from BMW. And I have friends working in the car industry, and about 10 years ago we had a big discussion for a whole summer night how electrification of cars might change the business. Now preparing this conference, I would say this is a little thing compared to AI and what's ahead of you. And there's a lot to read about BMW strategies. What is your main work right now, and what's keeping you busy most of the time when you think and work for BMW about artificial intelligence?
Okay, well, so that's very true. It's a big change for us to switch from these old mechanical engineering topics to the software topics, not just in case of the technology as itself, but also in terms of working models, for example. So I'm part of the department responsible for autonomous driving. We are about 800 software and mechanical engineers sitting in Munich, unter Schleißheim. So we have our own autonomous driving campus right now. And our working model is an agile working model, so with feature teams working from end to end. And I'm responsible for the AI and ML tech team. And our main task is to have a roadmap for AI and ML so that we have the infrastructure, for example, or the data or the labels just in time for the features we want to address with machine learning. And of course, we are trying to address these level 3 in 2021, so there's a lot of work to do. And AI is not just important for us in case of autonomous driving, but also for the plants, for example, in predictive maintenance or something like that, we're using that. And standardization is a quite big question for us. First of all, in technical terms, of course, we've heard a lot about that in these 3 presentations, but also in more or less emotional questions. So when we are giving speeches or discussing with customers or other employees not related to these AI topics, there's always one question, will the car kill the child or the grandma? So many of you have heard that before, I guess. And I think it's really important to address something like that because people are kind of feared what the car will do when it's driving on its own without a driver in it.
And one of your board members, and I think he's responsible for development, Mr. Fröhlich.
Yes.
And he said in an interview in 2021, we will bring out a new car. I think it's called the BMW iNext, without making advertisement now. But what I found interesting is it's not so much about the car, it's about who will set the first standard with AI, which is comparable to what we have with airbags or any other kind of car issues. And do you think really in 2 years you will already be there to set the standard for the whole car industry?
I don't think so, that this will be the case, because for autonomous driving, especially level 3, which is mostly highway driving, we don't necessarily need AI on many fields, so we can use conventional methods to address some of the tasks. And for the standardization, we're trying to work together, and we're currently doing this in cooperation projects with other OEMs and other companies to find a solution for the whole industry. Because we don't think that it could be a unique selling point to have a safe AI in a self-driving car.
Okay, we come back to that, and I'm sure our colleagues here have also an opinion on that, but I would like to turn to Frank, because Frank, you're Vice President Strategic Development and PMG Technology Test and Research Center, and when I looked at your website, I first thought, what a great fun place to work, driving all day. I must say I'm from Munich, a little bit car fanatic, but when you hear now Mr. Fröhlich from BMW, Denise's upper boss, I don't know, somewhere on the board saying 21, we will have already a standard, and you see those cars driving around in your test areas, what timescale do you draw?
Okay, hi everybody. It's very interesting to be here to discuss about certification of autonomous vehicles. As you know, there is different level. Like they say on BMW, they say that we are on a level 3. They are working on it. The level 4 and 5 of autonomous vehicle. This is an autonomous vehicle. What is interesting here is it's true that we need to go there. Is a necessity because we have too much people who die on the road. We don't have the choice about it. But the question that we have when we talk about certification is, because we are making, okay, just to explain a little bit the role of PMG Technology. PMG Technology, we manage the Test and Research Center of Transport Canada since more than 20 years now. What we do, we make, because here in North America, Canada, and US, we don't have the same system of certification than in Europe. In Europe, before to put a vehicle on the street, it has to be certified. Here, you can put a vehicle on the street, and the manufacturer can put a vehicle on the street, and after the government, Canada and US, will bring some sample of this vehicle and will test it and check if this vehicle meet the standards. Okay, and if they don't meet the standards, you have a recall, and you have to fix the problem, and you are sued by many lawyers. Okay, this is the part of the game. Okay. that's what is interesting in our case is we are the only one laboratory in North America who is the property of the government. All the other laboratories are private and used by the government, but we are the only one that is property of the government, and we are the only one in North America who make tests on all brand of vehicles. We make compliance testing, that's check the standards, if they reach the standards, and also research testing for the government of Canada and different government. Based on that, we have a reflection because we are on development and strategic, and we have to know where we are going. When we talk about autonomous vehicles, what it is an autonomous vehicle? Is it a vehicle that is only drive on the street safely? What people expect for an autonomous vehicle. For example, if the vehicle is driving safely, alone, there is many functions that this vehicle will have to take care of. For example, control of police. If the police want to know if something wrong, normally they ask you, they stop you, they ask you your paper and everything. Now the vehicle has to respond to the police. If I have a heart attack in my vehicles, somebody has to call the emergency. That will be my autonomous vehicle has to take care about this, right? It also has to take care about my environment. If I saw somebody just close to me on the street that is in injury, attacked by somebody or something else, normally I call, but my vehicle is supposed to call. That's mean when we talk about certification, what we are supposed to test. Because when we talk about AI, because there is no autonomous vehicle without AI. This is the first point. Without AI, there is no level 4, no level 5. It's impossible. Why? Because actually, we don't have one thing. Mr. Gilles Savard told us a few minutes ago about predictive and prescriptive. Actually, we have, some people say that we have autonomous vehicle on the street. No, we don't have autonomous vehicle on the street. We have some rail because we have vehicles, they are it's very difficult for them to go on the street with many other vehicles in a real situation. We need to be care of, we need to have somebody behind, we need to take some different safety guards, like somebody has to get ready to push the button to stop the vehicle or something like this. This is not an autonomous vehicle. This is a vehicle with a kind of autonomy, but with control. Autonomous vehicle is a vehicle that is on the road without any control. Then he is managed by a predictive and prescriptive center of, name it brain or name it as you want. How we could certify this? Because the first thing before to say about we will want to certify this system is to ask what this system is supposed to do. This is the first thing. What this system is supposed to do, what we expect from him. And after that, we could discuss about, okay, this is why it's impossible today to be alone on the certification process or assessment process for this new automotive industry. And this is also why it's so difficult actually to have a real AI system on the automotive industry. We talk about AI on airspace because the challenge of airspace, even if the challenge of airspace is important, is less than the challenge that we have on the land. And we are more sensitive because look, if we look how history, if we look how civilizations, there is no great civilization that is not based on transport. Take Roman, Empire Roman, it's transport. Take Venice, small town in Italy, become to be famous. Why? because they have a huge boat transport. If you ask many people on the street about, okay, what is the most famous brand in Sweden? What would they will say? Volvo, Scania. Even if, sorry, but if we saw what is the most famous brand in Germany? You go in Africa, you go wherever, and it's like, BMW, Volkswagen, Mercedes. You know, this is hard life. Transport is part of our life. That's why talk about certification is a very big challenge. And it's not solved yet. And it can be solved. The only way that we can solve it is make a collaboration. That's why, for example, PMG, we are discussing with TÜV and with different laboratory we are used to make some certification program to try to, for the first time in our history, to try to make a network of worldwide laboratory, Chinese, European, North American, to be able to think about how we will manage this assessment, this certification. Because there is so many things that come in this certification, because it's not only technical things. There is legal thing that will come there. We will get some legal part and different knowledge skills that is not actually really think about right now. But the first things is to say what is the real autonomous vehicles and what we expect from AI into the car. This is the first question. When we will solve this question, we will get a first step of the certification.
Thank you. And Joachim, as we still have you here on the panel, listening now to it, first, if anybody of our panel, Montreal or here, could explain me what is entailed in a level 3 and a level 4 and 5, that would be nice to hear. But Joachim, I would like to hear from you. Could it be then, you said we have a European Association for Standardization, and please forgive me if I don't remember the right name. So could it be like in Europe, BMW could sell cars up to level 3, but let's say in China, level 5 would be fine as well because they're more liberal about these levels? I don't know. This is a very blunt question. There are more people, so I don't know. But yeah.
Well, this is okay. This is probably a good opportunity to confess that I'm not a coder or a mathematician or anything. I have no idea about AI. But it's fascinating to me, which is why I started with Stefan. But in terms of European products and European standards versus North American or East Asian standards, it's the world of standardization. They always say that we're in this together and we're working collaboratively and stuff. But it's still a bit of an arms race, especially when you talk about liberal countries like China. They have a federal program and they put a ton of money into it, and then everyone has to go. So I'm not sure European standardization has like the biggest weight in this. I think as long as companies are interested in it, and as long as companies want to collaborate in a European way, I think then it is going to be meaningful. But comparing individual countries and their federal programs versus the European Union and the European standardization effort, I'm not sure it aligns properly.
And how does it influence your work, Denise? Like your cars are mostly exported to the US, to China, to other markets, and you're still a German car producer. So which is the obligatory standard for you when you think about AI?
So I would like to answer with an example. Mm-hmm. So we have used machine learning to get a better cut-in detection. So cut-in is when you are driving on the highway and someone came to your lane. Mm-hmm. And we have already an assistance system in real cars driving. Oh, sorry, yeah. So we have already an assistant system in our cars driving, which helps the driver to react to these cut-ins. And we use machine learning to make it more comfortable. And so, of course, it's technically not useful and not possible, I would say, to have a less comfortable system in China. So why would you do that? We have a solution, we use it in Germany, and why should we use a worse solution for China? So there's no reason for that. And of course, we have some standards and some beliefs about the quality of our cars. And that is driving what we are going to build and what we're going to develop.
Okay, and Ashkan, I am turning back to you. What I learned in preparation for this day is AI is a lot about collaboration, and you talked about the companies BlackBerry bought before and or is currently buying. So, but this is just one aspect. The other thing is collaboration of so many players. The hardware producers, the software, the security, and so on. How do you manage that, and how do you sort of position a company like BlackBerry in that play in order to generate the standard, which is in the end obligatory for everybody?
Well, I don't know if I can comment on generating a standard, and the role that BlackBerry plays in generating that standard. But what I can say in terms of what we do in terms of best practice in order to make sure the quality is there is to focus on two important things. First, looking at every attempt that we want to make in order to build something, build a component within a bigger system. Understand how it operates within that system. And as a component of that system, we should have a good view into what are the functional and non-functional requirements for that component, and what is the way in which it is kind of working inside that bigger system. So once we have that, we need to look at different requirements in order to make a high quality component for the target system. And those build on many different things. Like the first thing that we have to think about is the workforce that is making it. The scientists, the developers, the people who are taking an idea and nurturing it till it becomes a concept, then it becomes a prototype, and then it goes into your master product calendar. So that's one part of the problem. So certification of your workforce is one component here. The other thing is the operating model. The operating model that people work together, use the systems, and try to build those prototypes and products and that component that you want to come up with in the end. There are other things as well, which we can, like the conversation that happened during the presentations. The AI component inherits most of the issues and requirements regarding information security and privacy from the software development world and hardware development world. Plus things like explainability, things like transparency that was very well described here. And I think one important component that we have to also keep in mind is how learning a model with respect to the information that we gather, based on the information that we gather from the clients, from the people who are using those components, will violate their privacy in the future. Is it possible to use the models that are learned and the patterns that are learned to reverse engineer some things that violate privacy of people? So all of those are factors. And for now, in the absence of a well-defined standard for the AI, we stick to best practices. For training the machine learning algorithms, gathering reliable data, making sure people who are developing these models are testing them properly, verifying them properly, and taking into account all the requirements upstream and downstream that we have to fulfill. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. And I have first questions from the audience here, Berlin, and Vera, I would like you to look for questions in Montreal. And I also invite the panel to comment on each other. please indicate that to me. So my first question would be here. Stand up, say who you are.
Yes, I'm Ghislain Robichaud, the Science Counselor. Oh, you hold it for me. Fantastic. I want to get on the issue of trust, and maybe it's a bit unfair to compare these systems on AI autonomous driving with GPS, and I'm not sure if there's any AI in the GPS development. I must say that I must admit a big fan of German cars and drive many, but I felt very, very bad about how poorly the GPS systems, even within Germany, perform. And I'm thinking, well, are we? And they're already directly connected to all of these systems, and I'm trying to transfer this idea to autonomous driving and other system that will be built, and the issue of trust, you know, and how do you are able to achieve this if you're in certain system that seems quite easy are not performing to optimization at this level.
Anybody you would like to answer?
Well, probably the car industry person representative, which is an AI.
Denise.
Okay, so of course we know about this problem, and we had some discussions, and often we have some questions about will it be necessary to have a 5G connection, for example, for this autonomous driving car. It's a kind of a similar problem. And of course it will not be necessary because there are so many spaces in the world where no internet or no Wi-Fi or no 5G or whatever is available. So these cars have to be kind of free. They don't have to be have to rely on these connections.
Okay, I have another question here. I first then take 2 questions from Montreal, and then we take another 2 questions here. I hold it for you too.
Sorry. Günther Tauer from the company TBS. I found it quite funny that we are talking about certificates. You know, there is an inflation of certificates on everything today, on every product. But, and I'm a little bit astonished, you know, even in the time before machine learning, we have Dieselgate, and we have even a car from BMW, which was recalled in Korea. Well, they have had certificates that they are proven products. But I think that we have to decelerating the production of cars, because it's not anymore a good quality. It's a little bit like you get from Windows a new version, and 5 minutes later you have to make an update. And I think with the cars it's the same. You know, remember the airbags from the Japanese company. So we are running in a sort of inflation of certificates, and people don't trust anymore car companies. That's the point. They just say, well, you can put how many sticks of certificates on your back of your car, but if it comes that it breaks down, or if it comes to the Dieselgate, then people don't trust anymore. Maybe we have to introduce fair trust. But for me, a certificate, it's an absolutely fantastic business. Nothing else, you know. QM, quality management, you know, I've seen so many things. Well, we couldn't go buy it instead of 10,000 euros in Liechtenstein just for €1. So it's an inflation, sorry.
Excuse me, do you have any other approach? So certification are not good, that is what I understood, but do you have any approach to solve the trustworthiness issues?
And hello.
I'm
This
sorry,
is your
I'm
moderator, and we have people in Montreal, so we have to be a little bit more concise in our discussion. Point taken, comment here. You can comment on that later if you want. And I look over to Montreal.
Yes.
Yes, we're having a question here.
Yes, I have a question regarding standardization, because you were talking, and I think it's correct perception that AI, so countries like Germany and Canada can be very successful in AI in the B2B world. And we were talking about standardization. We were talking about standardization of, let's say, quality of AI systems, but also what about technical standards for AI for B2B, in the B2B world for, let's say, interfaces and whatever. So I think because if you can set these, in particular in industries from Canada and Germany, so if you can set those standards, you can be very powerful. So are there any standardization efforts, for example, from respect from Dean or whatever, in this respect, on the technical level?
So we have one question for, you want to take it, Joachim?
Yeah, that's a quick answer. No, unfortunately, we have not. I'm not sure if there are any international proposals on this, but at least on the national level, we're not working on any technical standards regarding interfaces or comparability or compatibility, excuse me.
And I see, Vera, I see a hand over there, middle table.
Yeah,
please.
we have many questions here in Montreal.
So we take two more, and please always, if you could indicate who you are asking, that makes the business of moderation much easier.
Well, this is a BMW question for the lady, and also probably this will touch the regulation aspect. Knowing that close to Montreal, there's actually prototypes of air taxi. I was just wondering from a automobile side, if this is being embraced and if how this is going to transcend all the regulation aspect.
Thank you. Please remember the question, Denise. And we take a second one. Second question from Montreal.
Charles Morgan from McCarthy's. A question for Dr. Amiri. You were speaking earlier about how AI was being used in a predictive manner in the context of cybersecurity. So that's the defensive aspect of AI in the cybersecurity context. Can you also speak to the offensive side? In other words, AI, I'm assuming, is also being used by nasty people to overcome any security systems that might be in place. And is it a kind of is it an ongoing war of who's got the best AI programmer to see who can attack and who can defend the systems in question?
And sorry, who was that question for?
For Dr. Amiri.
Okay, so we start with your question and then go back to Denise.
Okay. Well, about adversarial AI, there is a lot going on, definitely, especially in the communities that do not share knowledge with other people. There are not so many open communities regarding adversarial threats and cybersecurity threats. So on the offensive side, we have people who are trying to use and leverage reinforcement learning in order to come up with a strategy to hack an infrastructure. It is hard to test it on real life environments because in general, real life environments are well protected using conventional controls, and a few wrong moves from the agent that is running on that environment results in blocking that agent down and stops that agent from learning further. So it is hard to create a setting for reinforcement learning in a real life environment to try to hack that system by giving it enough amount of time in order for that to learn how to hack. But in general, a lot has been done when it comes to reverse engineering the rules that are in place and understanding what are the decision margins for the classifiers or decision engines that call in favor of something to be a threat or something that is a normal activity. And there is a lot of work being done on that. And well, it's an arm race. We have to invest in that activity, otherwise we're going to fall behind, like many other areas, that we are a few steps behind the adversaries because they have enough time, they have enough funding, and the return on investment. I'm quoting a study about the return on investment when it comes to the offensive side. It's about 1,425% return on investment. And imagine, well, compared to the consequences, at least in the short term, consequences for people who carry out attacks is insignificant compared to that return of investment rate.
Thank you. Denise.
I'm not sure if I get you right. You were asking about air taxis, so flying taxis, right? Did I get that right?
The question, I think. We don't see you, so
Yes.
it's yeah, okay.
Okay, cool.
Confirmed. Confirmed.
Okay, cool. So, in the first place, we believe that our customers are looking forward to these autonomous driving cars. And if there will be, at some point in the future, flying taxis or these air taxis, I'm not quite sure, to be honest. So I don't think anyone will, or anyone is knowing that at the point of time now. And concerning these regulations, we are trying at the moment to make it technically possible to have these autonomous driving level 3 and then in the future 4 and 5. And of course, one problem we're facing is that many regulations are not there at the moment. So, of course, we try to adapt to these regulations at the time they come, they appear, and try to face these regulations, of course.
And isn't it also, Stefan, if I can turn to you, because of the comment before about certificates, isn't it a difference? Where do you draw the line, or Joachim, if you want to answer, a standard like I've heard from BMW, like we want to set the standard for autonomous driving is something different than a regulation. So where is the difference between a certificate and a regulation and the standard? When does it?
First came the regulation and then came the standard. We're working close together with the German government, and yeah. So, and maybe I forgot it to say, we are the German chairman for the DIN ISO standard, and back to you, there are a lot of activities on the international packet, and yeah, and the co-chairman is IBM and Microsoft. Or what I can say, they wasn't happy that the Neurocat lead the party. So,
okay. So a lot of negotiations. Vera, could you look for questions in Montreal? And I have a look here.
Sorry.
Yeah, I have one question. Yes, go ahead.
I just want to comment something about the point about the certification.
Yes, please do.
Just because we are, for example, here in North America, we don't deliver any certificate. But even if we don't deliver any certificate, just to give you an example about what we will be faced on when we will talk about certification. Yes, because we talk about intelligent vehicles, to make a test of this intelligent vehicle, we need the collaboration of the manufacturer, because all this intelligent vehicle has, just give me a black box, okay, of data to how this thing is programs and algorithms, what they made inside. But the fact is, the manufacturer don't want to give to anybody what is the secret that they have inside this black box. Then, for example, for us, when we came, for example, to make some tests about connected vehicles, that there is some connected vehicles that is already on the street, and we did some research testing about these connected vehicles, and we asked to the manufacturer, okay, are you able to give us the key to look if the connected things work? They said no. No, we don't give it to you. And this is the first things. This is the first reality where we will be faced off is when we will come to make certification of brand. For example, we are a government. We want to ensure that this autonomous vehicle is working. And the manufacturer said, okay, I don't give you any secrets about what is in the black box. How we will do it? How we can assess or control or make something in this? And we can understand why they say these things, because it's the secrets of their knowledge. Everything is inside this black box. This is why I want to tell you that we are really very far. We need to discuss. We need really to there is a very big collaboration. We have to go out of the box that we have now. The way that we make certification and in the past and the way that we will do certification in the future is completely different. And depending on which system we will do, probably human will be not aware to make certification. We will ask some AI system to certify another AI system. This is where we are actually. We can't say that, oh, we are able to certify things, because If somebody don't collaborate, we are not able to do that. And we are a very different system. We have no certification. We don't deliver certificate, but it's the same that in Germany it's not, or in Europe, it's very hard. This is why I said, okay, somebody can believe in certificate and not believe, but this is not the question.
Okay.
This is not the debate, actually. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. I have one last question here in Berlin, and then one question in Montreal, and then we have to close that part of the session. So.
Thank you. Oh, okay, great. Yes, hi. My name is Mark Renner. I'm with the Chamber of Commerce. So I like to point out that I'm neither an engineer nor the expert in AI, but I'd like to propose a provocative thesis. I think the standard for AI in mobility has been set some 30 years ago, and the famous car was known as KIT, and I think its only problem was that the driver he always used to call Michael, although we know now his name was David instead. And I think the way that I see it from my outside observing role is I think, for example, of people with vision. Someone, well, we all know that the history of the smartphones were actually invented. So what I'm saying is, isn't it perhaps much too early to think of a standard for certain types of things because we haven't had the visionary ideas being developed? Or if I look at that, what I considered, or what I call a standard, because this was a car which could actually do all the things that we were, expecting it to do using AI, isn't that the kind of vision that the people who are actually working in AI should be striving for, and that should also have an influence to set standards?
And is this question to anybody specific?
Well, we were talking about mobility, so it should probably go to the people who actually deal with mobility. The question, if I look at car makers today, they make advances in certain things. Yeah.
Thank you. So, Denise and Frank, I think that goes to you. And do we have a question over in Montreal?
Yes, we have.
And I apologize if we only can take one.
Thank you. I'm Coriel Baffier, and I work with MyTax, so we specialize in co-funding international mobility between industry and universities. But my question is really about the standard setting and the certification processes in relationship with the legislative environments internationally as well. We saw the first speaker, one of the speakers this morning, Charles, mentioning the need for ethical and guidelines for development. And how does that international legislative framework relay into the standard setting at a technical level? Because another panelist was mentioning the legislative coming first before the standards, but we see the technical advancements being quicker than legislation internationally. So how do we bridge that gap?
Who should answer your question? Do you have a preference? I'm sorry, sir?
It's open to the...
It's okay.
No preference.
Okay. So we had the first question here, Denise, I think to you about the vision.
So I like the example with KIT. I've watched it too when I was a child, so cool. But the problem is what we are facing. Of course, we have a vision, we have a picture in mind what the car will be able to do in level 4 or level 5, of course. But also there are some technical topics that are now real for us, and we have to find a solution. And there are no standards, there are no DIN or whatever, or ISO or something like that. And so we have to develop it, because we are facing it right now. We are currently developing level 4 and level 5, and we have to deal with pedestrians, the detection of pedestrians, for example. And normally we try to rely on the state of the art or standards or something like that to be sure that we are doing the right thing. And if there is nothing like that, we have to come up with it on our own or in cooperation with other companies. So it's not possible to wait until the technology is really there.
Before I give your possibility, Frank and Ashkan, Joachim would like to add something.
Just a quick addition to this. And this is the catch-22. There are no standards, but all the major car companies want to be the first in the market. They want to be the first mover. I'm sorry, but it's a commercial business and it's a free market. So this is how the things go. But now, because everyone is working on the technology and everyone wants to be, the first mover, they develop their own technology. It's IP protected. There are patents on it. They are not willing to share this. If you try to develop technical standards, you have to share it because you're not the only person in the room. There's BMW, there's Audi, there's Volkswagen, there's Honda, there's et cetera, et cetera. So that's the main reason why there are no standards, and I very much doubt that there will be technical standards in the next coming years because it is an arms race, and it's for whoever gets there first gets the lion's share of the whole thing. That just to add to her response, but what I'm interested in is if you're working on level 4 or level 5, and I'm assuming most major car companies are working on those 2 levels. My question is, how do you incorporate the emotional human driving behavior with the rational AI behavior? Because if you only have one of the two in any given traffic situation, it is probably fine, right? And if it's purely AI controlled, it's probably fine. But what are your scenarios for mixing the human driver with the level 5 driver? Because that to me sounds like the perfect storm, and it sounds like a recipe for a disaster. Because we drive like irrationally. I'm on my bike and I drive like a lunatic, and I know it. And most cab drivers do too. So if I may ask this, how do you deal with that? What are your simulations for this?
Short answer? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a big problem, true. So the mixed situation is the biggest problem we're facing. And at the moment, our cars are very defense. So they are waiting, and so that's a problem, right?
Okay. So then here, Ashkan, Frank, anything you would like to add to the standardization and technique?
Thanks. So regarding the setting standards where a standard is missing, I think, especially when it comes to AI, there are a number of challenges that we are facing. One is the behavior of an artificial intelligence system builds on the design and architecture. And you have seen during the past couple of years, design and architecture of the AI components and ML components, machine learning components, have been changing one paper after another. So it's changing rapidly. It is very hard to fix this moving part and say, okay, let's standardize that. So we need to take a step back, which brings me to the point that you mentioned. When you have no line of sight into what goes on under the hood, what do? How do you certify that this machine is performing robustly, stably, and reliably under any circumstances that you can throw at it? And at the end of the day, it can perform successfully and effectively. So maybe this might be a controversial comment, but we might be able to learn some lessons from the way we certificate biological intelligence. And I'm not saying just human intelligence, because we use animals for many other many operating models as well. For example, in law enforcement, we use dogs. We make use of biological intelligence in general, whether it be coming from a human side or an animal side. So we might be able to learn some lessons from there, which basically builds on the fact that we identify the error. We try to understand what's the root cause of that error and quantify the error that was there and try to reduce that quantity. And that's the process that we are taking with human beings when we let a person graduate from a program and we let them operate on a person. It doesn't mean that they are flawless in terms of their performance during the many years of education that they had. But there is a certain statistics that if they pass that threshold, we say, okay, you're good to go and do your job, and you have the certificate to and clearance to get that job done. I think we might be able to think in those directions as well when it comes to AI, and find ways in which we can facilitate introduction of new products to the market, while making sure that the investment of a company in innovation is not blocked because of a new regulation that goes in place. And at the same time, we help the producers and manufacturers stick to best practices that exist in the field and in the community, to make sure if the new regulation that comes in demands something, they have already proactively aligned all their processes internally in order to deliver on those requirements.
Thank you.
Just to complete some point is about standardization, because we have already most of the car now has ADAS inside, and most of this ADAS is not standardized. Lane keeping, AEB, name it, is not standardized. But we have it on the car, it's on the street. And we accept it because, in fact, even if it's not standardized, even if it's not regulated and everything, we accept it because, in fact, it gives us a better life than it was. Today, if I'm tired, my car will tell me, hey guys, you are moving. Stay on your line. If I'm a little bit tired, they will brake. Even if I'm just not completely concentrate on the street, on the road. And even if it's not standardized, in fact, I will accept to have it because it's better than the car that I had before. And also this is why there is a pressure. And let's just understand the government. The government, before to standardize something and decide to standardize, they need to ensure that the technology is mature. But actually the technology is not mature, then they will not spend money to try to design some standards to finally decide that, okay, 2 years after, okay, forget it, the technology completely changed, we have another things. Just 5 years ago, nobody, we was on 4G. Nobody talked about, oh, we will get 5G just now. We will say, oh no, 5G is a dream. It's not a dream anymore. Just 5 years, it's nothing. This is why it's very difficult for a government also to really put some standards and also to discuss, because there is, and like they say, there is also very big business in this industry. And this is why the only thing that we can expect is try to control that it's more safer and the service to the citizen, it's good.
Thank you.
There is part of industry that take care about that is the insurance. Insurance company become to test, even if they don't have standards. They have a very big part to play in this link between standardization and innovation. This is this industry that they will keep care about us in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. So thank you to the panel and to the speakers on standards for collaboration in AI. Thank you very much.